In the previous episode, we visited the Louvre, the largest and the most visited museum in the world. We checked out some very famous statues and intriguing paintings. Before we bid farewell to the Louvre, I spent some time looking into one particular painting that's related to the next Paris attraction I was planning to visit. This painting, The Coronation of Napoleon by Jacques-Louis David, depicted a rather unusual coronation ceremony. In the realm of the former Holy Roman Empire, which included France at one point and much of what Napoleon conquered, emperors were crowned by the Pope. This gesture gave legitimacy to the emperors that they rule with permissions and blessings from God. Napoleon, who in this painting was wearing a chaplet like a Roman emperor, was about to put the crown on the head of his wife, Josephine. If you look around, almost everyone is having their eyes on Napoleon. Wait, wasn't the Pope supposed to crown both the Emperor and the Empress? And where is the Pope? Behind Napoleon, you see a familiar face you might have come across on a different painting here at the Louvre. Pope Pius VII. And he was looking down powerlessly rather than at Napoleon like everyone else in the room. This painting provided hints to how Napoleon's reign was different from other European emperors in the past. He was merely keeping with the old traditions, but he no longer sought the legitimacy of his reign from God. The mandate to govern, which used to be given by God, now had been defined through one of Napoleon's main contributions to many countries even today, the Civil Code. The message I got from Jacques-Louis David's painting was that the rule of God had been replaced by the rule of man, who also happened to be a pioneer in favoring and reforming the rule of law, which we see in modern societies. There's still more to the Louvre than what we have covered, but we're not here to crack the Da Vinci Code this time. A few metro stations away, on the south bank of La Seine, is another one of Paris's many prominent landmarks, Hôtel des Invalides. All thanks to the Paris Museum Pass, now we're able to check the interior of this magnificent complex that's visible from many other parts of the city. Now I am back at another one of the attractions in Paris that I've always wanted to check out. This magnificent building now houses the tomb of Napoleon and also a military museum. You know, we still have lots of time after visiting the Louvre, so we're gonna explore this place right now. Like explained in one of the previous episodes, Hôtel des Invalides was constructed as a hospital for wounded veterans. I was trying to enter the complex from its front, but I was told by the guard that the entrance for visitors was at the back, close to its domed chapel. Standing at 107 meters tall, this chapel, today serves as the main cathedral for the French military, is the tallest church building in Paris. It houses the resting places of important French military leaders. Here are some of them. Of course, the centerpiece of this mausoleum is the tomb of Napoleon, the former emperor of France and one of the greatest military commanders in human history. To access the crypt down below, there is a passage at the back of the altar. Napoleon died in 1821 at the age of 51 while in exile on the island of St. Helena following the eventual defeat of the French army in Waterloo, Belgium. His remains were brought back to Paris in 1840 and was laid to rest, like you see today, in 1861. Nearby, you also see the tomb of Napoleon II, the son of Napoleon who died in 1832 in Vienna, Austria. Like his father, his remains didn't make it back to Paris until more than 100 years later in 1940 upon the request of guess who? Surrounding the massive red stone coffin, you see sculptures on the walls depicting Napoleon in different forms, such as a French military general, a Roman emperor, and even a Greek/Roman god. Being the most important historical figure in the early 19th century, Napoleon remains to be controversial even today. Some praise him for spreading the liberal ideals inspired by the Enlightenment movement to different corners of Europe, which paved way for dismantling feudalism and establishing modern societies across the continent and beyond. Some others, like Beethoven, were disappointed that Napoleon, who first appeared to be a liberal and anti-monarchy pioneer, ended up putting the crown on his own head, as well as the bloody wars he started, which caused the death of millions of innocent people. I've got a question. Why is there a dinosaur skeleton right above Napoleon's tomb? Alright, let's continue our exploration of Hôtel des Invalides. The cannons inside the courtyard made me feel like this complex was more like a barrack than a house for wounded veterans. From the courtyard, you'll find the entrance to Musée de l'Armée, the National Military Museum of France. Here at the museum, you'll find little toy soldiers, models of famous fortifications, and delicate replicas of old cannons. Of course, you'll find real cannons too. This is a military museum after all. The museum features artifacts related to different periods of French military history. I've been to many other European military museums before, and the equipments the French military used back in the days, oh well, weren't really that different from the ones you see in other European countries. The most exciting collection, for me, was the exhibits related to Napoleon. Again, you'll see another one of those world-famous paintings of Napoleon here at Musée de l'Armée, Napoleon I on his Imperial Throne. If you remember all faces of Napoleon we have seen in our adventure so far, including his death mask at Musée Masséna in Nice, on various sculptures, and in paintings done by different painters, they all appeared to be the same face. I think the real Napoleon might actually look like this if we were to meet him in person back in the early 19th century. I would say if you're interested in the Napoleon chapter of French history, this military museum is a must visit for both serious artifacts and fun stuff. After the Napoleon collection, we entered the exhibits on the two world wars. I have to say, this is certainly one of the highlights of Musée de l'Armée. While the rest of the world was more familiar with the early surrender of France under President Pétain, D-Day, or brutal events on the Eastern Front for the European stage. The World War collections at this museum recounted what happened during the interwar period, and how the French preparation of a future German invasion was set to fail. You also learned of French resistance in overseas territories and former colonies. One key figure in organizing French resistance to Nazi Germany was General Charles De Gaulle, the leader of Free France, who later became the president of the French Fifth Republic. The museum also had a separate section on the life of Charles De Gaulle at the time of my visit. Like mentioned in one of the previous Marseille episodes, prior to watching Zinedine Zidane playing football/soccer on TV, Napoleon and Charles De Gaulle were the only two French people I could name, because they had so much influence on modern France and today's world. The museum was so informative and intriguing. I didn't realize that I spent an entire afternoon there. By the time I visited the final stop of Hôtel des Invalides, its still functional cathedral, it was already very dark that I could barely see the interior of the building, as there were almost no natural light from its windows to illuminate the place. That was it. That was the tour of the military museum and the tomb of Napoleon. As you can see, it's getting dark. Yeah, I would highly recommend this place. And of course, make sure you visit the Museum of Army first before you visit the tomb of Napoleon. Yeah, because in that case, you would have a better idea of who was actually buried alongside Napoleon. Because when I first went in, I had no idea who those generals were. And then, of course, after visiting the military museum part, yeah, I figured out. A good thing I did take pictures and shot videos of those tombs. So I guess, well, not bad. At least I get to share with all of you here.
20 minutes later.
Hey folks, so I just got back to the Orsay Museum, and so tonight is one of the days that they open till 9:30 p.m. It's only 6 o'clock, so I figure I still have time to finally visit this museum since it's covered by the museum pass. Okay, let's get going. Once entering Musée d'Orsay, wait, where am I? If you think the surrounding environment reminds you of a train station, you are not wrong. The architecture that houses the museum today was indeed once a railway station, known as Gare d'Orsay. However, it took only a few decades for the train station to reach its capacity, both in terms of traffic volume and the size of new trains. The station eventually closed its doors and has been converted into a public museum. Funny thing is that this building has served more years as a museum than as a railway station, like how it was designed to be. Today, Musée d'Orsay is a world-class museum for modern arts, and it is considered as a top attraction of Paris. This museum features works mostly from the mid 19th century to roughly the time when the building was built as a train station, which is the beginning of the 20th century. You get to see how the styles of visual arts evolved in just half of a century. Let's start it with the earliest paintings at Musée d'Orsay. They kind of resembled more of what you see at the Louvre, except with lots of nudes. I mean, seriously, there is a painting called The Origin of the World, which I'm not even gonna show it here. It's simply too provocative, so I'll leave it for you to Google and see yourself. Then, all the nudity disappeared in paintings. Things got more realistic, and that's why they call this school of art realism. Just look at this collection of weird-looking figurines from the 1800s. Especially this one. Looks like Donald Trump, huh? Most of Musée d'Orsay's sculptures are located in its hallways. Personally, I like the sculpture collections at the Louvre better. What do you think? Leave a comment below and let me know. For me, you can't just compare La Venus de Milo to the sculpture of...
Are you serious?
A polar bear? Okay, let's get back to the paintings. You'll start to realize that many works now appear to be hazy, and it seems that the subjects of each painting are now nothing more than a few strokes of paint, rather than with crazy details like the ones we saw earlier in this episode. This school of art is called Impressionism, and Musée d'Orsay houses some of the best Impressionist works anywhere in the world, including those of Claude Monet, the single most influential Impressionist painter in art history. Then you'll see some paintings that, well, kind of resemble the Impressionist paintings, except with sharp contrasts and use way more rich colors to put focuses on specific things the artists want you to pay attention on. This school of art is called Post Impressionism, and Musée d'Orsay is also one of the best places to see this kind of paintings done by master painters like Paul Cezanne and Vincent van Gogh, or in English, Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh spent his final years in France and created many of his most famous paintings during this time. He ended up committing suicide at the age of 37, never knowing that he would become one of the most influential painters of all time just a few years later. That was it for our tour of Musée d'Orsay. Is it worth the visit? If you only have time to check out one single museum in Paris, I would still go with the Louvre, just because it has way more variety of world-class exhibits to see. If you have the Paris Museum Pass, or simply want to see more arts, Musée d'Orsay will be a great complement to the Louvre. If your focus is on Impressionist and Post-Impressionist artworks. Do I need to say more? Our adventure of Paris's top attractions will continue. Where else are we going? Follow me to the next episode.
tell you a sad truth is that I actually got lost in Queen's Farm.